now, before we dive into what INCATE can currently achieve, we should first zoom out a bit and look at the big picture. What is actually the threat, and why is nobody developing antibiotics anymore? And is it really nobody? So according to the WHO, what we see here, in 2021, there were 4.7 million deaths attributable to AMR. AMR means antimicrobial resistance. And death in the same year associated with AMR is almost a double. Then there is a very recent Lancet report, which also monitors how AMR and associated death are developing in the world globally, also in different age groups. And in this recent report, there was an outlook given until 2050. And as you can see, there is a multiple amount of the numbers that we know today, which will be affected and leading to death by AMR. So the threat is growing. However, the WHO, and I will come to this later, also states that the pipeline really remains inadequate. So why is that so? And when we look here at the percentage of infections of all causes of death, also here the situation is very alarming, because you can see of 100% total causes of disease, you have almost 1/3 of death associated with infectious diseases. And half of this 1/3 is due to solely bacteria, which is an enormous number. And this by far exceeds death caused by tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV together. So this is a global burden, and this is actually a very urgent social need that needs to be solved. So one could now expect that many scientists and also companies are doing something about it. But the numbers of antibiotic drugs in development, as you see here on the right side, in the right graph, show that almost nothing is in the pipeline. And you compare in the upper part is the preclinical development of immuno-oncology drugs in light blue compared to the number of antibiotics currently in preclinical development is by far much less. And in clinical trials, this difference is even worse. And when it comes to approval, there's almost no approval of antibiotics compared to immune-oncology drugs. So the pipeline of antibiotics is almost non-existent. And the reason for this is actually the low return of invest, not to talk about any profit making. And this you can see on the left graph, where you have in light blue the profit that is made, and in dark blue the investment for the development that has to be taken. And in the very top you see the development of cancer treatments. The money you have to invest is only a little part of the money that you can gain, that you have a profit. While when you look at the lower part for antibiotics, you don't have any profit, but you have just investment. So antibiotics development is considered commercially really less attractive compared to oncology treatments. And why is that? When we have a closer look here, the situation surrounding the development of antibiotics is worldwide is not easy to solve. And here you can see the pipeline over the years and the antibiotic discoveries. And what you see on a first glance is that in the 1950s, there was quite a lot of discovery and approval going on. And the pipeline was, let's say, in order, while afterwards the pipeline nearly disappeared entirely. This may be in part due to the belief that the antibiotic crisis was solved after 1950, but this proved wrong because resistances developed and established antibiotics are less and less efficacious. There was a little hope coming up around 2000 and 2010, but this was not really solving the problem because mostly this was no new chemical classes of molecules, but existing classes were a little bit changed. There were derivatives, which were new drugs, but this did not help against the resistance problem. So therefore, the WHO has put up rules of what is expected from a molecule with potential to become a new antibiotic. And this is, it must be a new chemical class. It must have a new target or at least a new mechanism of action. It should not be a cause of or easy to develop resistance against it. And there should be no cross resistance. And this is already really difficult to achieve. So this already is an enormous challenge to find here new molecules. In the next slide, the WHO has reacted to this and acknowledged the danger of infections caused by bacteria by a priority pathogen list, where they define critical pathogens, high group of critical pathogens, and medium critical pathogens. And this is based on where is the highest number of resistance, what is most difficult to treat. And it also should be a guidance or a guideline for funding organizations, but also for governments, where to direct research endeavors or where to direct the development activities. So in addition, could you go one slide back? Yeah, in addition to this bacterial report, the WHO recently also published for the first time ever the same list for fungal pathogens, which also suffer from the problem of resistancy, but also there are only 4 chemical classes of medications that are in the clinic and can be used there. And just in April this year, the WHO published a report of the pipeline of antifungals in development, with the result that the pipeline is actually missing. So there are by far too little antifungal projects in the development, and we will run into societal catastrophe when we don't do something about it. So now we can come to the next slide. In addition to these paradox, as I said, the development costs of antibiotics are really high, and the prices for antibiotics are low on the other side. So, for example, daptomycin, which is an antibiotic of the class of cyclic lipopeptides. It was a blockbuster back in the year 2000. It was actually the last commercially really successful antibiotic. When you think that getting an antibiotic through to clinical authorization, it costs 1 to 1.5 billion euros. In addition, there are a number of established antibiotics whose patents have expired. So that means they can be produced at low cost in the Far East. And as long as they are on the market, it's very difficult to push through a higher price for new antibiotics, which would be needed to get any return of invest in this field. So while companies can make profits with so-called orphan drugs, these are typically very high-priced medicines for rare diseases, which antibiotics could be. The situation is nevertheless different with antibiotics because they have to be priced in line with these authorized preparations. And at the same time, however, they also should only be used if the established drugs fail. So they should actually be in the shelf. So why should a pharmaceutical company spend money on a preparation that should never be sold in small quantities? Yeah, and these are the biggest problems, but next to this, or on top of these commercial challenges with antibiotics, there are also challenges in the development process, what you can see here on the left side. Because bacteria are constantly evolving. So the target that you may have used for developing your molecule might change rather quickly. And how quick that happens and how fast resistance develops is often difficult to predict. In addition, you have also usually more complex clinical trials with antibiotics because you have to consider also immunocompromised patients, for example. And there's not for every treatment, there is a regulatory guideline already present or in place and in use. So a lot of developers of antibiotics are also in close discussion and support from the regulatory authorities to find here new guidelines and new paths forward. And on the right side, you also have challenges of the appropriate use of antibiotics. And this is also unique to antibiotics. First, there is a very low awareness about that the use of antibiotics should be really restricted. Then, as I said, novel antibiotics should be in the shelf and should not be sold. And we are talking today here mostly about antibiotics, but actually this alone will not solve the societal need. But at the same time and in parallel, the development of new diagnostics, which can very fast and very precise test which pathogen is causing the infection. This parallel co-development is an absolute must. And in many parts of this world, these low availability and affordable diagnostics are not available at the moment. Another problem is the overprescription of cheap generics, as I said, and the growing resistance in hospitals. So it's a big challenge to develop an antibiotic, actually. And the market model that usually works is not working for antibiotics. So there must be other incentives, push incentives and pull incentives to support antimicrobial innovation in order to prevent that there is no innovation at all. And at the end of the day, it's actually the patient who has to pay for the development of new antibiotics through their health insurance contribution and as taxpayers. However, because of the resistance development, highly effective substances, also against multi-resistant pathogens, should be prescribed only in exceptional cases. So consequently, something has to change in the payment model. And here we would also like to encourage, maybe also in the audience, economics and also politicians and economic experts to make sophisticated contributions for new market models here. So INCATE as an incubator, but also any other incubator, can make a contribution to solve this challenge, but we cannot really solve the major problem. And I must make that clear really right at the start. And I must emphasize that the changes that are needed, they must be on several levels in order to counteract this antimicrobial resistance. And the awareness has reached the politicians, this can be said. And there are different attempts in the different countries and also on a European level to suggest new market models. And I have here as two examples the transferable exclusivity voucher, which is tested by the EU. And this works like a pharmaceutical company can receive or will receive a voucher once it brings a new antibiotic to authorization. And this voucher entitles the company to extend a patent for a lucrative drug by up to 1 year. So a drug that they can really earn much money with. On the other hand, the company could also resell the voucher. And this is very attractive to pharma companies because the prices for such vouchers can be really, really high. However, in a commentary in The Lancet recently, various authors also criticized this concept and point out that such a voucher system does not ensure that a new antibiotic is really available worldwide. So on a national level, on the right side, you see here as an example, in England, in the United Kingdom, they are currently trialing a subscription model that is kind of a Netflix for antibiotics. And in this model, companies will receive a fixed financial amount per year for a new antibiotic, which will be paid out regardless of whether this medicine is prescribed or not. So that would, so to say, decouple the production from the sales and would make it attractive, therefore, again. And in this case, the government, so the National Health Service of UK, will cover the costs, as the British Parliament announced on its website in September 24. So here is really the government involved, has recognized the threat and tries to directly counteract this. But as you can see, the one simple solution is not yet in sight. So these models are more or less in a testing phase, but something is clearly moving. So if more countries and also the US, the Americans get on board with this Netflix subscription model, for example, that would be an absolute game changer, because then it will become attractive for investors again, because they can at all expect a profit again. Yeah, however, in the next slide, in order for anything to be developed at all, the early phase of the antibiotics pipeline must not dry up, but must be filled with promising projects. And this is where INCATE wants to contribute. So the INCATE's mission is actually to help young innovators to bridge exactly those gap between basic research and an investable company. Because as long as the research is still ongoing in a university where there are brilliant postdocs with good science, they are pretty well covered with scientific funding. But once they want to make the step out of university in the early phases, from hit to lead or lead identification, there is actually not really funding available, and INCATE is currently more or less the only funding body in these early phases. Later, when a company has made it to clinical studies, there's also funding available, but in these early stages, it's very difficult to get support. And INCATE is not only about funding, but it's also about giving really dedicated advice, because academic experimental thinking is very different sometimes from a drug development point of view. So we try to give advice here on what is the next key experiment linked to the medical need and linked to a market possibility, and also to increase the value of this technology and make it interesting for an investor. And INCATE also has a big network of experts, of consultants, of legal personnel, and of toxicologists, for example. And we want to build up a community of these experts together with these young innovators, which is also including lobbying and also exchange of expertise and bringing together all these players. And enabling young innovators to get into this network, to get the right connections, and to get good feedback for their development. And with all this, we want to replenish the early antibacterial pipeline until the political problem is solved, because also the expertise of antibiotic development is slowly dying out. Young people are leaving the field. current experts are getting older, and yeah, there is no new people coming after. So we really want to keep the constant deal flow, to keep the pipeline, so that once the market model is solved, we have enough innovation on the run, on the go. Yeah, maybe some words how INCATE was founded. The founding members are actually all academics, and the initiative started in Basel, at the University of Basel, together with the NCCR Anti-Resist, where they realized we need support of academics to spin out companies in the antibiotics field. And yeah, to become really an impact and to become serious also, Basel then partnered up with the German Center for Infection Research, the DIZIF, and also with the Leibniz HKI. And these 4 academic founding members, they are contributing the operational team of INCATE. And 1 year ago, more or less, also a French public-private partnership, BioAster, joined, and also adds 1 person of the operational team. And the operational team is actively scouting for new innovation, is giving this one-to-one advice, and is pre-selecting really promising innovations. We then have a selection committee which is formed of global pharma companies, like here on the right side, Shionogi, MSD, and Roche, and Kineticos. They are sending experts, representatives of their companies. They look at the pre-selected innovations, and they really give very valuable feedback to the spin-outs, to the ventures, or to academic teams. And they also provide the non-dilutive funding that is then given to the awarded ventures. And this is important. So it's a public-private partnership in that sense. And of course, now this raises the question of why do these large and globally successful companies spend money on growing future competitors, maybe? So for these industry partners, this expenditure, what they give, is reasonable and gives them an insight into current trends and innovations, which they otherwise would not at all have. And the ecosystem within the biotech industry has changed also over the last decades. In the past, the big companies, they did their own research and their own development, because the startup mentality that exists now did not exist back then, at least not in Europe. And at the moment, 80% of the innovation in the antibiotics sector is in the hands of small and medium-sized companies. So the absolute majority of promising projects that fill the early pipeline are therefore no longer in the hands of large companies, but are in the hands of small startups. So today, the big players are pursuing a strategy of observing and supporting young companies. And those startups that are successful can then enter into cooperations, or they can be bought out. So in the end, it's a win-win situation. And that is certainly one of the reasons why the big companies are interested in a structure like INCATE, because they accompany these early processes and they can see whether later an investment is worthwhile or not. And on the other hand, the startups, they benefit from the knowledge that is needed to develop a product that can be successfully placed on the market, because that's actually where it often fails. So to summarize this first part, how INCATE accelerates or tries to accelerate the development in AMR and tries to generate value is actually that we want to recognize and identify science. Science is important, but we want to raise the awareness also in academia that entrepreneurship is important too. And INCATE wants to replenish the early antibacterial pipeline, and we will soon in a minute hear more how this can be done, and also how INCATE supports the incorporation of academic projects into investable companies. A first point and a key point is that there must be an excellent intellectual property strategy, so which is something that academic researchers do not always think about, that publication is not the most important thing, but generating patents and how to file a patent. And to acknowledge this as their value driver. So INCATE tries by giving this advice to turn intangible assets into tangible projects. And we support also in out-licensing, we support the deal flow, and we have a portfolio of ventures who really get this support, the specified support that Mercedes will explain in detail in a second. What is also very important is that INCATE is, so to say, de-risking projects for future stakeholders. So an INCATE success is that we bring a young company on a level where it can apply for later funding, like, for example, the funding organization CarbX, or for funding by investors. So we train them to get on this investable level. And in that way, INCATE tries to generate value for economy and for high-tech reasons, also securing employment by building ventures. And with this, we want to offer actually for the companies a one-stop shop, like a package where they learn legal issue, regulatory issues, the scientific valid next step, and how they can talk to investors. And with this, I hand over to my colleague, Mercedes González Moreno, who will explain in detail how INCATE realizes this vision and brings innovations to an investable level. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Sina. And I hope you all can hear me well. So in the next slides, we would like to explain how INCATE works and how we help and who we help. So yes, our focus at INCATE is to help innovators during this early stage of development. So this can be academics planning to spin off a company, also young startups that have limited resources. So we really try to cover the areas from the technological readiness level 2 to the beginning of TRL 5. So this means from concept validation to the beginning of preclinical development. But this doesn't mean you cannot reach out to us if you have an idea. So we are always key to hear if you are an academic and you think you thought of something that may work. We can also start talking and we will see how we guide you. And unlike other programs, we do not have specific application calls. So we accept application on a rolling basis. And we focus on supporting new therapies and intervention. So we don't cover yet diagnostics or devices, but maybe in the future. So at INCATE, advice and community are open to everyone. All groups, innovators who contact us receive advice and access to our community independently if they are selected to apply for funding. But additionally, INCATE has a two-stage funding process. So teams can apply first to our stage 1 funding to enter our portfolio, receive tailored advice and support, as Sina mentioned, and also funding up to 10,000 euros. It's really to refine key milestones and to help the project's progress in views of the following stage 2 application. So after 6 months, and if the team has proof that they progress, then they can apply to the stage 2 funding. It's a more competitive process, and the selected project receives 250,000 in non-dilutive funding, and this really helps them to gather the key evidence that they need to build the business case and definitely attract further funding. So since the start of INCATE in 2021, we have been in contact with more than 400 people. This has been in part, thanks to our active scouting activities, but also to great extent also to the growing outreach, where more and more people are hearing about INCATE and they get in contact with us. So we help teams worldwide, and up to now we have awarded 48 stage 1 winners and 4 stage 2 winners. And we support different modalities covering the areas of prevention and treatment, with a balance between teams that are developing the more classical small molecules or direct acting antibiotics, and also teams developing alternative approaches. I will show you a bit more in detail later in the presentation about the modalities. But through our stage 1 and stage 2 funding rounds, we have invested around 1.5 million euros so far. But what it's even more impressive, I think, it's that INCATE has motivated external funding over 25 million euros from other funding initiatives. Thanks in part to our support for ventures in raising further funding, as Sina mentioned before, helping in their applications to PACE or CARBIX or other grants. We can see also an impact not only in the money raised, but also in the increase of intellectual properties among the INCATE portfolio ventures. So we have seen over 65 secures IP rights in their projects in this period from 21 to 25. And likewise, incorporated INCATE stage 1 winner ventures have generated more than 75 new jobs in this period. We also witnessed the first exit of one of our portfolio ventures. This was CC Bio, that was acquired last year by Precision Biotechs in US. So who we help at INCATE? So on the map on the left, you can see which countries that we have received applications from since we started. So I mentioned before we were in contact with 400 people since we launched, and so we have received 154 applications, meaning around 40% of the teams that contact us and sending a proposal, like an official application. Sometimes because they are not in our scope, or they are too early or too advanced. But from those contacts, we have applications from 154, and most of them we receive are from Europe. Within Europe, mostly UK, Germany, or Switzerland. But as I mentioned, since we are gaining visibility and outreach, we also see more applications coming from other continents as well. And on the right-hand graph, you can also see the incorporation status of applicants. So not all the teams that contact us incorporated into a company. Actually, most of them are still academics that are planning or on the path to spin off from academia when they first get in touch with us. Then we have more than a quarter of contacts that just funded a startup in the last 1 to 3 years, so very young ones. While the rest incorporated around 4 to 5 years ago or before. So we see this is in line with our focus at INCATE. So we really support these very early projects, help them translate the findings into investable companies. We try to work with them for around 2 to 3 years. It's not really fixed. We see depending on the needs of its team. And we try to advance their assets so that they can have better chances to receive other funding, non-dilutive funding, or also get more attractive to private investors. You might be wondering who selects the ventures that receive funding support at INCATE. And as Sina mentioned, we have fortunately a high-class panel of experts as part of our selection committee, with representatives from the industry partners and other independent experts. And they review the applications that we present to them, and they select the most promising projects, so from which they want to see a pitch. So the teams need to pitch online to our selection committee and answer their questions. And after this, then it's the selection committee that will vote and then agree which projects get awarded. And so far, there has been 48 teams awarded with the stage 1. This is an overview. Yes, I mentioned around half of them developing direct-acting antibiotics, and the other half working on alternative approaches. So when we look at our portfolio ventures, since we started INCATE in 2021 until last year, yeah, we can appreciate that there is a growing diversification of the innovation modalities that are supported through this Stage 1 award. So this really shows the capacity of INCATE to really reach and support diverse innovation across the AMR landscape, and also reflects that these scouting activities look for innovation in the field, and we can hopefully continue supporting as much modalities and projects as possible. So here in this graph is also to show you the current distribution in percentage of INCATE applications by modality. So if we include the 48 Stage 1 portfolio ventures in dark blue, and also what we call work in progress projects in light blue, these are projects that are still a bit too early in their development, but we are helping them to get ready to apply for Stage 1 funding. So when we consider all these projects, then around half of the teams are developing small molecules. So yeah, this over 20%, and we then see phage therapies as the second most working modality, and antivirulence compounds or vaccines. So every year we carry out a survey among our portfolio ventures, also to ask them about their needs and to the development status, and this really help us to gain a deeper insight into the challenges they are facing every year. So these results that we are showing here today are based on data from 2024, the edition from last summer. The one from this year is at the moment running, so we will have new data soon. But yeah, according to this 2024 survey, around 89% of the responding ventures identify the securing of investment as one of their top 3 needs. The second and the third most frequently priorities were finding a cooperation partner, like around 50%, or obtaining regulatory advice with almost 40%. Also, most of the ventures we support are initially financed by our own capital, so family and friends money, or venture capital investors. So unfortunately, this is really not enough and provides just very limited financial runaway. So typically 7 to 12 months before they run out of cash. But nevertheless, we are very proud to see success stories also among our portfolio ventures. So I won't describe each of them in detail, but I would like to mention the feedback that we have received from the teams behind these success stories. So they are telling us how our support helped them, for example, to spin out from academia and create the first development plan, also to shape commercially viable target product profiles, very important. Also guiding the IP licensing strategy, or connecting them to the right people to help move the projects forward. Also, the financial support they receive. With this, they could reach early milestones, but what it's more important even, so to provide credibility with investors and stockholders. So the feedback we also quite frequently receive as well is that it's about our expert advice, not only around business aspects, of course, as it is the case with other incubators, but specifically this structured advice we provide in the AMR field. Maybe this was mentioned before, but we also help the teams when they want to apply to further funding, like PACE or CARBIX, and we are really glad and proud to see that some of our portfolio ventures have made it also to these advanced programs. We also know how important it is for an incubator to be present everywhere within the community and to really make an impact. So we also put a lot of effort to our outreach and support activities within the community. So we are present at the most important events and conferences, for example, the AMR conference, which is organized by the MIM Alliance every year in Basel. This is actually the biggest conference in the AMR topic in Europe. And their INCATE is organizing since 2 years a pre-conference event, basically to foster exchange of ideas, strengthen network opportunities. So in 2024, we had a FETCH workshop. And last year we had, it was this year actually, in February, we had a networking event among the portfolio ventures. We also organized the startup pitch event at the AMR conference, actually to provide visibility and support to ventures, also outside our current scope. So, for example, diagnostic or device company can also have a stage to pitch. And actually, we are glad that some of these modalities were among the winners. So, for example, Pure won last year. They developed a technology using UV light to disinfect medical tubing, so like urinary catheters, for example, and to prevent the infections before it occurs. And they have been actually also successful recently on receiving other awards like this DATI pilot. Maybe some of you know about this. It's a German funding initiative to accelerate transfer of research into practical applications. And they got this. And this year, the winner was called SoundCell, and they developed a rapid phenotypic antimicrobial susceptibility testing device. And this is to detect bacterial resistance, and they do it very fast, like within just 1 hour. Glad that the startup pitch event is really welcomed and has quite many people is attending this, and actually it's the public, the audience, who vote for the winners. Besides this startup pitch event, we also organize a poster competition in the conference, and with this we aim to give also more visibility to academic researchers that are attending the conference. And other of our educational activities are what we also call entrepreneurs clubs. So this is a series of webinars that we organize and are open to everyone to join. And there we discuss about different topics like creative funding opportunities, or when is the right moment to talk to a regulator. The last one was last week and was about the importance of a target product profile. Maybe you don't want to miss the next one, that it's gonna be in November, and the topic will be about business development in the AMR. And we will also be in the next conference in London, Gambrick. And for sure next year you will find us again in the AMR conference, where we will also be announcing soon the inscriptions to this pitch event. Just to maybe wrap up, as my colleague Sina mentioned at the beginning, at INCATE we really try to be this bridge between academia and industry. So what we think that makes INCATE unique are our efforts to be this one-stop shop, so able to fill the gaps and educate researchers to become funders that can really progress their fundings, their assets fast into more attractive and investable projects. We do active scouting and active outreach and bring early visibility to ventures, to global big pharma. At INCATE, we won't solve political or market issues, but our goal is really to keep the pipeline running and a constant deal flow. So maybe I can finalize mentioning that, although INCATE is really specific and tailored for AMR, we think that these principles could be used maybe as a role model for other sectors. And of course, at INCATE, we are open to give also our advice, our experience to other incubators, and we'll be very happy also to hear from the experience of other innovators or other people that are spinning out at the moment, and to hear if they get support in their sectors or have access to programs similar to INCATE. Yeah, so this is our management team at INCATE. So we are, as I said, always open to discussions and invite anyone interested to reach out to us anytime. And yeah, maybe with this we can go into the discussion. Thank you, of course, all for the attention, and yeah, reach out to us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was a very insightful presentation, and I think it was also exciting to learn about your portfolio and especially about the best practices, because that's usually what really people like to see, and you have already a very nice track record and good connection in the community. But of course, as I have seen at least 2 Helmholtz constructs being part, of course, we now would also love to see that some Leibniz projects would join. And maybe as a very short commercial, and not really commercial, but we give away money. So it's possible also to join things like the AMR conference using our Congress participation initiative for the members of our research alliance. But that's just a side topic. So let's come now to the main discussion. And I think we will also introduce Helena Costa Pereira from your team. She's also present, I guess, and probably will join the discussion. And she's in your network responsible for communications and networking. So discussion is open. Please ask your questions either in the chat. Hello, Helena. Either in the chat or just activate your microphone. Maybe I can start with the first question. I mean, you explained these incentive systems in the European Union. What is the like worldwide situation? Can you tell about this? Are there additional incentives to come, or is it has it gotten more complicated due to the situation with the research funding in the US? What's the perspective for that?
Yeah, so this is a good question. And there are, of course, more initiatives than the 2 examples that I presented. And they are more on national level. For example, Sweden, they have a governmental program. This is called Enable. And this was prolonged, is now Enable 2. And is for academic projects who want to go this first step of the development. So you can have, for a lower price, the first in vitro assays up to preclinical studies done there for your project. And also when we look to Germany, I mean, we have the German Center for Infection Research, which is a permanently financed infrastructure directly for doing research and spinning out and translational projects in the AMR field, which is an infrastructure that is very valuable, and this is unique in Europe, I would say, to my knowledge. So this is already a tool that we have in Germany, which makes us to a real leader in the frame of Europe. This has to be a bit more used, and it has to be more industrial, let's say. But this is definitely a very good tool. We also had something like this with BioAster in France, which is also a private public partnership, where they also help these innovators to do their first essays for special prizes, let's say. So there are national initiatives, let's say, but it's lacking a really global systematic organization. And in the US, we have with CARB-X a very active organization who is supporting later phases of drug development in the AMR field. But this is very well organized because they have direct access also to political decision makers. And this gives them a lot of power, which we still do not really have in Europe. So this could be improved and must be improved in the near future.
Okay, so we need like ambassadors at the EU Parliament or something like that.
Yes, there must be a lot of more lobbying. Yeah.
Okay, sensitive matter, as we also have seen, like the members of the jury are from Roche or other bigger companies, although you explained it like why it is needed that the big pharma is involved there. So the question from the chat is regarding communication with your organization and discussions involving IP-sensitive information. Do we need to sign an NDA? So how is that organized?
That's also a very, very good point. And yeah, I forgot to mention during the presentation, but at INCATE, we only ask for non-confidential information at any stage, stage 1 or stage 2. We only work with non-confidential, so we don't sign any NDAs, and yeah, we don't have that part. And it works perfectly. So the teams don't need to show, and it's requested not to show any confidential data. But of course, if there is at the end some collaboration between two partners, or the industry partner is interested, then we leave it up to them. So from 1-to-1, they will do these NDAs, but not within INCATE. We are in that sense then out.
Okay.
And this is, if I may add, this is actually a very important point, because the industry partners, they usually want to see what are the trends, but if they would see more information, like confidential information, this may also, let's say, weaken their own projects. So they don't want to know these details in the beginning. Once they become interested and they say, yeah, we would like to get in contact with this specific startup, then, as Mercedes said, they can do it, and then they have a CDA between the two of them. But in the first moment, this is very important that we are based solely of non-confidential information.
Okay, thanks. I think you made the point clear. So coming back to this political level, I mean, we all have this tiredness of discussing things, or the society also had tiredness discussing things related to COVID. And I mean, things are moving forward to like new topics. So what's your take on how can we improve or enhance the attention for AMR problematics? I know, of course, that's what the AMR conference is about, and but is it like showing these early stage projects and say, okay, the young companies, they are very innovative and they are pursuing this, or what's your idea on that?
Like to gain visibility for the topic as such.
Yeah, even more. I mean, you're working on it. You really want to be visible to more people.
Yeah, actually, this is a question that we are discussing a lot, and also we discuss this with other funding bodies and with other organizations. And what we hear is if you really want to make an impact and to change something, you have to expand, you have to think bigger. And this is, of course, not a very clear step-by-step advice, but it actually mirrors how we all have to think. We cannot solve this as Thuringia or as Germany. We really have to think global here, and we have to support structures that are an international endeavor. However, we at INCATE, we have formed our strategy into this direction to get really an impact and to get a meaning or to bring a value to these companies. But I have to say it again, we cannot really solve the political situation or the market problem. So we have to see where are our limits here, what we can do, and we focus on this pipeline. But of course, nevertheless, we try to support lobbying. We try to make international connections, to partner up with other incubators, with bigger organizations like GARD-P, the Wellcome Trust, CorbX, PACE, and others. And this actually takes quite a big time also of our operational team, and it's also very long lasting. So it's not easy to build up these connections. So we are also in negotiations with the EU, with the HERA fund, HERA Invest, and with the AMR Action Fund. Yeah, it's very it's always very interesting to talk to people who are really engaged and who want to change something. But if the governments, so if the politicians are not investing in this, we will not make it alone.
Yeah. Okay, one question that came up in the chat regarding the procedure. Can your first stage funding be used to file a patent application?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually quite flexible. Our aim is really to help as much as we can, so we don't have, like in other programs, what the money should be used for. We believe the teams know also what they can get the most of value from the funding. Of course, they can tell us what we ask for is that they tell us how INCATE could help and what they want to use the funding for during their application. But it's not limited to anything. And we then will also advise them, yeah, that's a good decision. We think this is the best way you can use it. But it's possible to use it for filing a patent or, there is no restrictions in that sense.
And do you have also like an informal network of consultants or people that can be contacted like on an informal way, so without having like big contracts and fundings and so on?
Yeah, that's part also of INCATE. So we have many supporting partners, also including IP consultancy, regulatory advice, CROs, and they even, some of them offer in-kind contributions to INCATE. So maybe the first 2 hours of advice are for free. So we do, these connections, and it's something not with not so many bureaucratic hurdle.
Yeah, that sounds very good. Thank you. Okay, so are there additional questions? Maybe in the meantime, I mean, you already mentioned that last year a diagnostics company won the competition. So do you think that these two fields are well connected enough, like AMR diagnostics and therapeutics, or is there some room for improvement?
This is a very good question and is often discussed in the INCATE team. Because actually it's also one of our strategies to include also more diagnostic companies, and we definitely have these contacts. So diagnostic developers are contacting us and asking for help. We just have to postpone this to later because this is at the moment we don't have the capacities for this because this requires a totally different development process, and also regulatory guidelines are different. And we need if we want to give you good advice, we need also the people, the experts who can advise this. So we need to expand our network in this direction. And we also need the regulatory advisor from this field. And we last but not least, we also need a selection committee member from a larger diagnostic company or a pharma company who also has experience with diagnostics. So this is a whole new part in the background that we would have to establish. And we are working on this, but we unfortunately currently cannot provide this. Yeah, but definitely it can only develop together. Because the best treatment doesn't help if you can't precisely diagnose what exactly is the infection. We are fully aware of this. Yeah.
Yeah. I fully agree. And I mean, people from this community, Leibniz Health Technologies, of course, many people are working on instrumentation also to improve diagnostics. Yeah. One more question in the two more questions in the chat. So one was, do you have the feeling that the awareness for bacterial resistance is high enough at the prescriber side?
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes, do you want to take this? I would clearly say no. And this is not only in developing countries where, antibiotics are prescribed and taken home, maybe given to the neighbor or taken only a few days and not the full time. So there are a lot of problems. But even in Europe, depending on the country, there's still too quickly antibiotics prescribed. So this antibiotic stewardship definitely needs more attention as well. And there are big initiatives in the world to improve that, but it's still very difficult. There need to be done a lot. Or what do you think, Mercedes?
Yeah, I agree. And maybe another aspect that we see also a lot is that antibiotics are also used in other areas in agriculture or in veterinary use. And it's a big lack if they can. I mean, there are new policies, especially in Europe, to try to avoid or banish the use of antibiotics in these areas, and countries that completely banish it. But in developing countries, there is still not cheap alternative to antibiotics for this. And yeah, the lack of other alternatives and how you keep your businesses running, not only in human health, but in the other areas, I think it's a big problem for antibiotic resistance. And we need to think in this One Health global aspects to try to tackle all the issues with antibiotics.
Yes, thank you. Another technical question was, do you have preferred contact points for different countries, or can we reach out to anyone on your team for an introductory meeting?
Yeah, so we have the contact access is the same for everyone, so you can reach out definitely to the scouting team. It's on our website. You can find it under Contact Us, and then we will definitely get back to you and arrange some video call to introduce and to discuss.
Okay, thank you. So that suggests that there are some people interested in having some further conversation. That's what this lecture was meant for. So let's wait for another minute or so if anyone else comes up. As I said, you can also activate your microphone and ask directly. And if that should not be the case, okay, then somebody said it was a really extremely interesting lecture. This is actually what I wanted to say. Okay, so thanks a lot for your introduction and also the contact points and the best practice example. We'll keep in contact, and we hope to hear more good stories in the future, and we hope that we can also connect our communities. So thanks once again, and bye-bye, and hope to see you all again soon in our next lectures. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.